When it comes to the brand new OnePlus Open and multitasking, there are a lot of very strange things going on, a lot of very strange ideas. In this video, what I'm going to do is what I think is going to allow me to most easily highlight basically what it's doing and how it is sort of different from other foldables on the market. I'm going to put it next to my Z Fold at the very end. We're going to also put it next to the Pixel Fold. And I'm just going to kind of show you how this thing handles multitasking, how those other devices do it, where they are the same, where they're different, and kind of allow you guys to make that determination about which one you think makes the most sense for you. So obviously there are a million different ways we could attack this comparison, and I'm sure that I will attack most of them over the course of the next few weeks in different videos. But for this specific video, I really just want to look at how these two devices handle split screen multitasking, because there are a lot of really significant differences. So let's start in the most basic place we can. We're going to launch two apps, and then we're going to launch the same two apps over here, and we'll see what that process is like. So with the Samsung device, let's go ahead and launch YouTube, and then let's go ahead and launch Threads. We're going to long press it, we're going to drag it over, and now we have these two applications both opened up side by side. On the OnePlus device, we're going to do the same thing. Let's open up YouTube, and then we can do almost the exact same thing. There's a taskbar, there's an app drawer. We're going to grab Threads, we're going to drag it over to the other side, and now you are looking at pretty much the exact same situation, but there are a couple of other ways you can get into this. So let's go back to YouTube full screen over here and over here. And what I'll show you is a two-finger swipe in from the side gives you an app drawer. Now you can do this on either side or from the top or the bottom, although I must admit I often have an issue getting this to work on these other two sides. I'm not exactly sure why. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna come over here and we'll just launch Chrome. On the OnePlus device, there's something very similar but different. If you swipe down with two fingers, you'll see it splits the app, and then what you get is your home screen, your launcher. From there, you can go into an app drawer if you want to do that, or you can simply use that muscle memory. You probably know exactly where all of these apps are because it's your launcher. You could probably launch these apps in your sleep because you just have that muscle memory. You're used to launching these things. And if I click on Chrome, what you're going to see maybe is a little bit strange here. So it looks like Chrome is taking up all this space, and then YouTube is also over here as well, taking up all of this space. Rather than having two small split screens, you basically have two full screen apps that you can quickly go between. Now you can also click up here and shrink, and then click up here and shrink, and you have the exact same situation, but you have that flexibility to enlarge, to expand an application if that makes more sense to you. Let's actually close out all of these applications, and what I'll do is I'll launch YouTube again. We'll do the swipe down and do Chrome, and I believe it should have it, yes, in the non-expanded versions. The reason it was like that is because I had done stuff earlier. It should default to this layout though. Now over here, we have the ability to drag another app up and put it into a third spot. Well, we have a similar ability to do that here. This time, rather than doing that two-finger swipe down, let's go into our app drawer, and we'll grab the Play Store, and when we drop it down, what you're gonna see here is that we have three apps side by side, and you're gonna be quickly jumping between them like you're seeing here. So instead of one kind of good app and then two small apps, you have three apps over here that are the exact same size, but the caveat is, you have to move between them. You can do a four-finger swipe and then see them all at once. Now they're all kind of small though. You can zoom back in. Now we also have the ability to expand an application. So now we have a full screen YouTube, and then if I click up here, two side-by-side apps again. So there's flexibility here, right? And then we can also come over here and let's try and grab an application that will make sense. Let's do YouTube Music, and let's try to get to the middle. And now you have a pop-up window for that. On the OnePlus device, the simplest way to do that exact same thing would be to use their smart sidebar, which is located right here. So watch what happens if I try to either drag YouTube Music up or if I just click it either way. It's going to launch it in full screen. And that is because, unlike some other applications, it just does not seem to work with the floating window. Over here, every app works as a floating window. Over here, not every app does. Let's go ahead and close out of all these again, and I'll show you another way to get into that floating window. So let's go ahead and let's try Twitter. If we swipe up like this, you see where it says release now. That will launch it in that floating window. Let's see if I can get YouTube Music to work that way through this manner. And no, it does not. So YouTube Music just does not support that floating window for whatever reason. Now, both of these phones, if I go back into this again, and let's do a 2-finger swipe down, and we'll do the Play Store, and we'll do the same over here. Let's do YouTube. We'll do a 2-finger swipe in and launch the Play Store over here. Both of these do have the ability with the little star there and the Save as App Group there. They can both do the same thing and save this as a pair to be launched. They can both also switch to a top and bottom split. But as you can see here, a top and bottom split for OnePlus is not the same thing. And I don't think there's any way to change that. Let's go up here and we can expand this. And now we have 2 basically full apps. But I don't believe this application is able to be shrunken, whereas that one can. So there are also, like I said, some inconsistencies. Let's switch this application. Maybe Twitter is able to be smaller, shrink. So like I said, there we go. Now we have the same exact thing. So not all apps can do all things on the OnePlus device. My impression of this is that Samsung has a system that pretty much works universally with every application. OnePlus has a system that works most of the time with most applications, but there are some points where things just don't work. However, when it is working well, it's a really compelling system. Sometimes it just makes sense to want to have a full screen app. Even if I'm jumping over here and taking some notes on something really quickly, being able to jump back and see the full article in between that sometimes just makes a ton of sense. And the good news is, if it doesn't make sense, you can go and use the Samsung style of doing things. So I like the fact that you often do have these additional options. Personally, Samsung's version of 3 applications, which I'll open up again, just isn't that useful to me because this app is fine, but these 2 may as well be absolutely useless. And I know some people will disagree, and that's totally fine. I do think Samsung has a better method of opening floating apps. I wish it worked on every app over here. I wish you could just simply drag an app up to a certain location and do it over here. That's definitely a much better thing for Samsung. But the third app experience over here, where you simply have it open either to the side, so it still is a full app, or it is expanded and it is a full screen with 2 apps up here. To me, this is just something I'm going to use, and I already am using more than I ever used this over here. I just don't know how anybody gets anything done in a square of that size, whereas over here, you get 2 pretty big apps and then 1 normal app, effectively with, slight bars on the side. I do also want to point out something that's very, very important to me as well. Let's get rid of one of these applications and I'll demonstrate this. I've talked about it many, many times on this channel, and I'm going to talk about it one more time. On Samsung devices, the last app you used is going to be the one the back gesture acts on, even if it's over here. In my mind, this gesture should be acting on this app. It shouldn't matter that I've touched this app left. Clearly, I'm intending to act on this one. Really quickly, I want to add this note in post here. Let's add a 3rd application to the mix. I still think that should be the case even in this situation. This gesture would act on this app, this gesture would act on this app, this gesture would act on that app. Having 3 apps changes nothing about what I'm saying. The only app that would be different would be if you had a floating window, and my proposal there would be, you've already got a bar up here, and on OnePlus devices, you have an X up here already to close things. Make this slightly bigger and have a little back button up there, and that would be totally fine for me as well. With the OnePlus device, things are a little bit weird though. Again, we're on the bleeding edge in some ways. We're trying something new, and when it works, it's great, but sometimes it's a little bit wonky. Let's make sure we've touched this app last. Let's go back over here, and what it did is it closed the web browser. Now we're only running 2 applications. Once again, we're going to touch this app so that this is one that was in use last. Let's go back over here. And it closed out of YouTube. Let's actually start fresh so that I can really demonstrate this. We're going to start playing that video over here. We're going to go into this app. Let's touch over here. So this app is in focus. Let's go back over here, and it goes back on this side. So when it's just 2 apps, the swipe is going with the app it's on top of, like the Pixel. But when you add a third app to it, now it reverts to the Samsung way of doing it, where the last app that was touched is going to be the one where you go back on. So that is kind of weird. And I guess I understand why they're doing it, because you have an app in the middle. So I don't really know what else they could have done in that circumstance. Maybe what they could have done is this back gesture is here, this back gesture is here, but instead what's happening is it's actually moving this app into the foreground. So I don't know what the perfect solution would have been for that. I'm going to highlight that it is strangely inconsistent for me. Now I'm going to cover the Pixel Fold versus the OnePlus Open in another full video where I'm going to really deep dive, and I may do the same thing for the Z Fold, even though it's the Fold 4. I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I will very quickly just kind of talk through how this device does the very same sorts of things. Let's slide these out of the way really quickly. The Pixel Fold multitasks well, but it's very, very basic, right? So if you launch an application, you're gonna have to swipe up, get your taskbar, grab the next application, and drag it to one side or the other. That's pretty much what you can do. You can double tap to change the side. You can resize them, which is something all of these devices can do depending on what state that they're in, I guess, because OnePlus is inconsistent with that stuff as well because of the weird things that they are doing. But that's really about all you can do on the Pixel Fold. You can't save app pairs. There's not really much more to say, right? These devices just have so many more options to talk about. Let me show you this really quickly. So we have 3 apps open. So that means I can't resize them, right? But if I close this one, now I can resize them. But the way that it does resizing is different, because what it's doing is it's just sort of resizing one application and allowing it to slide off the screen. So it's not resizing like this where it's just, squeezing it down. When I slide this over, I'm not shrinking this app, I'm enlarging this app, and this app just goes off the screen. So again, it's very different. I love that OnePlus is trying to reinvent multitasking on these mobile devices. They're looking at a screen that's this big, and they're saying, yeah, you can have, look how bright that is, my Lord. You can do a lot of things on a screen that is this large, right? You can split window and get a lot of stuff done, but they're saying, imagine if we imagine that the screen expands past this. We allow apps to slide back and forth. And I'm telling you, in my experience, when that's working well and you're bouncing between 3 different apps that are all like of a normal size, it feels pretty next gen, and it's really, really smooth, and it's really, really fast. But there are all these little caveats in there, right? So the back gestures changing based on what you're doing. Getting into a floating window, you're having to use a sidebar instead of your taskbar, and even with the sidebar, not all the apps work, and if you don't want to use the sidebar, you got to open the app and then swipe up and hold and launch it as a floating window, then launch the app that goes underneath it. There's just lots of weird, inconsistent things. I feel like Samsung, with the exception of the back gestures, which I just don't think make a ton of sense to me still, you can disagree, and I know that some of you will. Samsung is just consistent. They've ironed out all of these little kinks and weird things with their system. It's done effectively. It's not particularly innovative anymore. All they're doing is, hey, look how many apps we have open. Personally, tons of little bitty squares don't really do a lot for me, but they are consistent. They work as you would expect them to work, and there's definitely something to be said about that. Google with the Pixel is like, we're not trying anything weird. We're just giving you 2 apps with consistent controls, and that's it. It works great, but it is the bare minimum. Now, if all you need are 2 apps and you don't want extra frills and all you want it is to just work perfectly every time, the Pixel might be a good way to go. So you have these 3 options, right? Running from Pixel, which is bare minimum, super expected controls, no problems. Then you have Samsung with a lot of stuff added, and it's still quite solid, still quite polished. And then you have OnePlus that's like, we're out of left field, just trying crazy stuff, and some things are definitely not working as you would hope that they would be working. But when it works, it feels really, really good. And all you can do is hope that over time, software updates come, and these things kind of get tweaked and they get improved upon. Although you should never buy, especially a device this expensive, any device, you should never buy it for what might happen. Buy it for what it's going to be, because you don't know what it's going to be. It's a real shame, honestly, because when it works, it's, in my opinion, It's the best. It is the best mobile multitasking experience for me since Surface Duo in terms of truly getting things done, because now you can have 3 full screen apps that are maybe not open all at once, but they're basically open all at once. They're one tap away from being full screen again. And yeah, it's just really, really good. But man, there are some weird things about it. Guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully this is informative to you guys. You can make your own decisions. I'm kind of telling you what I think, but I'm mostly just trying to provide you with the data so that you can make the purchasing decisions that you want to make. Hopefully this was helpful for that. So like I said, thanks for watching. Subscribe before you go. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.